the question we come back to, how do I get my partner to listen to me? I'm assuming the person asking this question has a history of not being listened to. And when they are not being listened to, their attachment distress goes up. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Robarge, an attachment-focused psychotherapist and a relationship educator, and I like to talk about how to heal attachment trauma and improve our relationships. On this video, let's answer the question, how do I get my partner to listen to me? Let's explore specifically what that means and name some concrete action steps that you can apply to your self-directed healing work. Now, for my work with clients over the years, I have been developing and promoting a model of self-directed healing. At its core, it's about three things: listening to self-wisdom, leading with self-action, and choosing self-compassion. And all three of these combined, working together, equals loving yourself. So here's what we're going to do today. We're applying this model of self-directed healing work to answering the question, how do I get my partner to listen to me? Let me share with you the approach, the structure of how I'm creating my videos. The organization has to do with the what, the how, and the process. What I mean by this is we want to explore what we're talking about, some intellectual ideas, sort of mapping out, giving it a framework, fleshing out an idea. Then the how is the contextual applications, the situation. How do we begin to work with some of these ideas or explore these ideas? And then the process means entering your healing process, entering reflection. So I'm approaching all my videos in this kind of Q&A format, but technically it's not so much Q&A as an answer. It's more like Q and R as in reflection, in that we're going to brainstorm multiple ideas, many different ideas. We're going to take some real world questions. These questions are coming from the membership community, Improve Your Relationships. Individuals are asking questions and want to explore some ideas. So it's not so much me having the answer and I'm going to tell you exactly what it is. Instead, I want to model and mirror a way to begin to enter the question, to come up with a range of ideas of how you can apply this to your healing work, and ultimately encourage you to activate your own innate wisdom so that you can follow your wisdom as far as whatever answer you want to pursue to the specific question. So I have a question. The question is, how do I get my partner to listen to me? And I wrote it here, and I'm going to scribble my notes. What this means is that we're going to be working this out in real time. And this potentially is going to be unpolished. And there might be moments where there's pausing and I'm writing something down. I'm thinking about an idea, trying to figure out an answer. And we're going to do it together. So please get yourself a piece of paper. We're going to diagram or try to begin to diagram some ways to break down what this question means and how hopefully model the way you can start breaking down other questions similar to this one so that you can take this approach and apply it to your self-directed healing work. So now the first thing that I want to think about, if we're going from, we're talking about the what, the how, and the process. So like what might be a framework of where this question is coming from? How do I get my partner to listen to me? So the first thing that stands out for me in this question is the word get. I need to get my partner. I need to get you to do something. So that is problematic right away, because if we're framing our relationships that we have to do something to get someone else to meet our needs, it's very possible, even, just by languaging the question this way, and I hope that you can see this on, as I hold this up, I just wrote control. So right there we have this, what is your relationship to control? If you came to me, we're sitting down face to face, we're entering this shared attunement of listening and talking and matching each other's rhythm, which is what relationship is. And we're sitting down and you ask me the question, how do I get my partner to listen to me? I might say, what's your relationship to control? How important to you is it to monitor and control if your partner does or doesn't listen to you? This question is probably coming out of attachment distress. I mean, that's essentially why people listen to my videos and the audience that I attract, and it mirrors what's important to me in my life is naming secure attached behaviors. How do we define the quality of bonding? How do we create quality bonds with other people and ultimately mutually want to meet each other's attachment needs? And when those attachment needs are not met, we get what we call attachment distress. And that can show up as anxiety, that can show up as shutting down and dissociation, that can show up as anger. There's protest behaviors where we're like lashing out. So let's assume, I'm making a lot of assumptions here, which is what we have to do when we enter these questions, because we're trying to be really open-minded and explore them from all different angles. So how do I get my partner to listen to me? Is this person who's asking this question feeling some attachment distress because we're assuming the partner is not listening? So what does it do to us when our partner's not listening? We attempt to ask in different ways. If that doesn't work, then we might try more of these protest behaviors like slamming cupboard doors or creating arguments or poking at the partner. We might end up being a little more needy. We're coming across as needy at this point. And what's going to happen for those of us, I want to introduce or bring in a little bit of attachment theory here, attachment styles. And it's a hot topic, in the last year or so. It just seems like everyone right now just loves talking about attachment styles. And one of the challenges and the problems with a number of people who like to talk about attachment styles is that it gets translated as some kind of black and white assessment of who you are as a person. That you're this one kind of style, your partner's this other kind of style, and you behave in certain ways. And, we can even create videos and saying, the anxious, preoccupied person acts just like this, and the fearful, avoidant person acts just like this. And it becomes too linear, and it doesn't acknowledge that attachment styles were not intended to be personality assessment or to name, that this is how you behave. They are adaptive responses based upon escalating levels of stress when your attachment needs are not getting met. So we can show up in many different ways, many different scenarios throughout our life where we're essentially not triggered, not activated. Our nervous system is in an everyday, reasonable, neutral way of orienting. And so we can interact in multiple scenarios as securely attached. What I'm pointing out here is that if you happen to gravitate towards being more anxiously attached, it doesn't mean that you're anxiously attached all the time. It's not your identity. This is not, naming that this is your personality. It's not a personality assessment. Attachment theory and attachment styles are saying that when your attachment needs are not getting met, and your distress levels really start rising and you can't manage those distress levels, you're going to start defaulting to your more preferred adaptive style, adaptive in the sense that you're trying to adapt to a situation where your needs are not getting met, and you're going to adapt to try to get those met. And for preoccupied, anxious folks, for those of us who identify as such, this means that our anxiety is going to increase and we're going to come from more of a needy place. How this translates with partners is that we're going to start saying, honey, can we talk? Honey, can we have I need to check in with you about the other day when you said that one thing, or when you did that one thing, or when you didn't say that one thing, or you didn't do that one thing, and I noticed it, and I need to explore what that means. Can you give me more reassurance? And can you tell me what you meant by that behavior? And if you can tell me, it's going to calm my nervous system down. So the question we come back to, how do I get my partner to listen to me? I'm assuming the person asking this question has a history of not being listened to. And when they are not being listened to, their attachment distress goes up. And it's very possible the way they're managing it is they're trying to get their partner to engage and to help them calm down their nervous system. Now, there is a legitimacy in that initial request. There's a legitimacy in saying, we are in relationship, we can practice co-regulating our emotions, as in together, that we both self-regulate and simultaneously we know through limbic resonance and how the attachment systems link up, that when we are really attuned and in a rhythm of listening and conversation and availability, and our body language shows that we're open and available to each other, that if we have anxiety up here, we're together going to start calming down, and even our breathing can change. We can even, to just give you a heads up, we can match the breathing of someone who's very upset and very anxious, and if we start mirroring to them the way that they are breathing, we can sync up with that breath and also begin to slow down even our speech. If we slow down our speech when we're in the middle of an argument, the other person's nervous system can, not all the time, but sometimes, or a number of times, will start joining you in that place, and we calm each other down. This is what's meant by the phrase co-regulation, co-emotional, emotional regulation that we share together. Now, with this question, how do I get my partner to listen to me? It's very possible, and assuming that the person who wrote this is not getting that shared experience. And the longer that we go without that experience, it just keeps exacerbating or exaggerating the attachment distress that's already there. And one protest behavior is now we're coming down to I want to get you. I need to make you, I am demanding. How do you listen to me? Hold on. This is the part of the video where I said, it's going to be a little unpolished. What happens, I like this phrase, a cycle of chronic concerns. Honey, can we talk about that? Honey, can we talk about, hey, you said something the other day. I need to check in with you. You said you're going to text and you didn't text, and I was waiting. And, what does that mean? So many monitoring, and this comes back to control, we're monitoring is what the partner is or isn't doing, is or isn't saying. And if we do this enough, this has the reverse effect of what we're hoping will happen, in that it's going to diminish the partner's attentiveness and can also even begin to show up as either manipulative or needling. That the partner on the receiving end of being questioned about their behavior, or being asked to take on some responsibility for your emotional reaction. Honey, I'm having an emotional reaction. I now need you to take that seriously and help me work through it. And we're going to work through it by dissecting your behavior so that I can calm down. Wow, do you hear that? I mean, not too many people are going to be able to endure that kind of game. And when I say game, I don't necessarily mean that you're coming from a place to be purposefully manipulative, but when you're pitting your emotional distress on the other person's behaviors, you're reinforcing your own dependency that you're not okay until you can analyze, break down, dissect what they really meant. And that you're leading from a place of your own insecurity. So here where we have in attachment theory, we basically have two categories. We have a securely attached behaviors and we have insecurely attached behaviors. And underneath the insecurely attached behaviors, that's where we get the preoccupied anxious, the avoidant behavior, which is broken down into dismissive avoidant or fearful avoidant. And then we also have this category, which is called disorganized attachment, which also sometimes is referred to as dismissive avoidant behavior. There seems to be a crossover there. But my point is that if you are unable to manage your own attachment distress and the feelings of not trusting. So the word insecure attachment doesn't mean that you're an insecure person or that you lack confidence in general. It means you're feeling insecure about the bond or the quality of the state of affairs in the state of the relationship. Right now. So that's an important distinction too, because insecure attachment doesn't mean that you're an insecure person and that is a character, a component of who you are, of your character. That's why it's just so important to repeat that point that attachment styles is not a personality assessment. It's not telling you that you're an insecure person. It's saying that when the bond and attachment is compromised or challenged and that your emotional attachment needs are not being met, you're going to respond relationally from a place of insecurity, that you're not going to feel secure about the bond. And I've always thought, when I learned that, I just thought that is a really important distinction to make. So what happens is that the person who's a bit more, leading from this question, how do I get my partner to listen to me? And a person who's feeling a bit more anxious about needing to understand the meaning of why didn't you text me back? Or you said that one thing at dinner, what did that mean? Or why didn't you say anything? Don't you know that would be important for me to have you say something in that moment and you failed to say something. Now let's talk about it for 45 minutes and process it and break it down so that you can explain yourself so that I completely understand that, this is not a sign of your distancing from me. Relationships, all relationships, are this ebb and flow, this closeness and this constriction, closeness and constriction. And we can map it out very easily with, there's a range and there's a frequency between the waves in this range of, let's say we have one couple over here, couple A, and they have a certain amount of closeness and then they have a certain amount of distance. And for their levels of intimacy and vulnerability, their attachment styles and how they've negotiated both verbally and non-verbally, this system of a closeness and a separation and a closeness and a separation is working for them. And we're looking for the window, the overlap, the place where they're both in agreement that I can manage this level of closeness and I can manage this level of separation. And the partner, it's the same thing. When a relationship is securely attached, and even just more generically, if we say the relationship is really going well, we can pinpoint this crossover of, this cycle, this wave of interaction, and say these two people are getting along pretty okay and it's working because they both have a shared range of closeness and separation, of intimacy and then constriction. Constriction is the sense of really needing to pull back. Constriction shows up often after holidays. Constriction shows up often after having a real big heart-to-heart, and there's a conversation. We really got to have this really important conversation, and it's beautiful and it's meaningful, and wow, we really got so close. Many times it's pretty much like clockwork. We can guarantee that near the end of that talk or the following day, one or both of these people are not going to feel as close as they were the evening before having this great, wonderful talk, because now they're going to need to separate and pull away. There's this constriction. We're internally working with our need for connection, but then also our need for individuation and our need for separation. And that process of managing the closeness and the separation is what is known as differentiation. So with securely attached couples and or just relationships that are working, both partners have this system worked out in a way that it's manageable. Now, when we have insecurely attached folks, whether you fall on the preoccupied anxious spectrum or the avoidant spectrum, they have not worked out. There is a discrepancy or a disconnect between their agreement of how intimate and close they can get and their agreement of how separated and pulled away that they can become, and one or both of the partners are not okay with the agreed system. So what this means is that they're not going to agree that they want this level of closeness. There's going to be one partner who says, I can only handle this amount of closeness. And the other partner is going to say, well, I can only handle this amount of closeness. I want this amount of closeness. And the other one's going to say, I don't know, that's too much for me. That does not fall within the range of the overlap of our frequency of connecting. Same thing goes for the separation. There's going to be one person in the partnership who says, well, when we separate, I like to really separate out here. I need this distance to regroup, to recharge my energy, to go inward and reflect, and to just live life. I don't want to be that close to you. And the other partner is going to say, that is outrageous. That is too much. I am going to go crazy if we are separated this much. I can only handle this much distance. And you see, this is the core. This is the reoccurring conflict, and the reoccurring, when the conflict goes unattended and we give up attempting to resolve this conflict, in that we resort to our not so best self, and that we start to employ, our anger seeps in, our resentment seeps in, our manipulations seep in. For example, one partner might say, well, I'm just going to call right now and I'm even going to see if they're home. They said they're going to be home, and let's just see if they're home. They said they needed some time apart. Let's see if they're spending it with friends. Because if they're spending it with friends, they obviously don't need time alone, and why aren't they calling me? So again, that's coming from the point of view of the person who's more anxiously attached. Let's do a little review. Let's go back to our question. How do I get my partner to listen to me? And I think that you can tell I'm not so much going to get on board with coming up with these strategies to get someone to do anything. We're looking at the origin of where is this question even coming from, and what is your need to control to get your partner on board. And we're looking at the frequency of how you manage closeness and separation. So one way, how do I get my partner to listen to me, is to really assess and look at, well, does your partner share with you a similar frequency of closeness and separation? And if not, that is a bigger challenge or a bigger focus to resolve than whether or not they are or are not listening. It's more needing to really look at, well, what is your compatibility, that you need to both be honest with each other and say, look, let's put love aside, let's put our emotions aside, let's be a bit practical and direct here. I like this amount of intimacy, vulnerability, closeness, and emotional openness. And I like this amount of distancing, separation, and constriction, moving away from each other. And this process for me, the frequency happens every 7 to 10 days. Now imagine the other partner then says, well, you know what? I don't want this amount of intimacy. That's not the level of openness and emotional availability that I operate from in relationship. I am slightly more distanced than you. And when we do separate, I really do need to separate much further, much more out here. That's the dilemma. And there is a very real world, practical, needing to have both people understand that your relationship will have chronic, ongoing distress and tension, and when the stress and tension are unresolved, it will move into chronic drama. You'll just be embroiled in this chaos and drama because one partner is continually trying to say, how can we push and get to this other level of intimacy? And the other partner is going to say, hey, how can we pull and make sure that we distance and that we don't, find ourselves getting sucked into a level of vulnerability that is, that's not my comfort zone. The question oftentimes from the preoccupied, anxious person is, well, can we make the other person change? So it's very rare that the preoccupied, anxious person will say, well, you know what? I need to practice learning how to go without the levels and the degrees of emotional intimacy and openness that I'm looking for or that I prefer. And then I'm also hearing a chorus of voices in my head that there's this whole group of people then who say, what do you mean have to train myself to be okay with it? I've been married to this person for 13 years or 20 years or 22 years, and I have managed to do nothing but continually accept that I'm not going to get my needs met. And it comes around to, you got to make a choice. Is this the right relationship for you? And that both people being able on their own to decide, yes, it is time, I want to initiate closeness and intimacy and emotional openness and vulnerability. And I'm going to initiate that on my own, not because my partner has driven the bus or directed me that I have to, that they're trying to get me to do this. It's that one partner who is initiating couples counseling and is dragging their reluctant partner there. and then, looking at the therapist and looking at the partner and saying, okay, you have got to change now. It's not going to work like that. Both people individually on their own have to educate themselves about this dynamic and the tension and the friction that's caused when we are not within the same range of our intimacy and our separation. And realize, we say, you know what, I want to change that. I want to challenge that for me. Not because you're, making a lot of, forcing me to do it or demanding that I do it, or that you're so broken down and hurt and crushed and you feel wounded by it. But because we both individually want to do that. Let me take another break here real quick. It's a lot, isn't it? Relationships. There is it's a bit of a paradox. It can be complex and layered and feel like a lot. And yet again, or at the same time, we're essentially having the same conversation. We're having the same conversation over and over again, which links to healing. And healing work is repetitious. Healing work is about repetition, and we repeat and revisit, although might feel like some of the same content. We're coming at it with each time a fresh emotional openness, that we're willing to go inward, let in this information, and allow it to settle and say, well, what does this mean for me? What can I do with this information? So I've come up with, I was thinking in the terms of this question: how do I get my partner to listen to me? And thinking about 5 skills. I've narrowed it down to 5 skills of some things that we can do here that's not dependent on making the other partner do anything. The first one is, my marker is dying all of a sudden. So the first thing, when we have this reoccurring hyper alertness of noticing the patterns of closeness and separation, and we are being a bit controlling by monitoring what our partner is or isn't saying. We're trying to get them to listen to us, get them to be available to us. And if we have trained ourselves to notice the shifts in the frequency of the relating, at which point our nervous system activates and we're going to feel the attachment distress, we are going to interpret that as an emergency. Oh no, he didn't call. He said he was going to call, he didn't call, and we have dinner plans and we're supposed to be at the restaurant in 20 minutes and he's not here. And I think, then the story takes off, and it gets escalated to this urgency because it's driven by our anxiousness, our anxiety. It's driven by a response in our nervous system, which happens to be a symptom of trauma. Attachment trauma a symptom of trauma is hyperarousal. And so we see this, insecure attachment styles have a really nice, in some ways, seamless application of looking at general trauma responses and trauma symptoms, and that they show up in relationships, and that there's aspects of how these trauma symptoms are essentially explaining or very much linked to the attachment styles, the insecure attachment styles. So hyperarousal and hyper alertness is a trauma response. And so for anxiously attached people, we are operating at this higher level of this hyper alertness of trying to monitor partners available, partners available, partners available, oh no, something just happened. There's a shift. There was a shift in the frequency or in the rhythm of our connecting. Emergency, emergency. This is now showing up in our body as an urgency. So, what does that mean for you? Turn that around and just say, how can you normalize this situation? How can you just frame this cognitively and say, this thing that I am challenged to manage, my distress in this moment, I'm challenged to manage it. However, can I at least begin to coach myself and say, this situation can be framed as a little more normal and not as extreme. And that's going to relate to number 2 because they're so very much linked to number 1. So the first one is normalize the situation. And what I was thinking for another skill that we could use here, de-escalate. We have normalized the situation, and then we have de-escalate the intensity. By de-escalate, so normalize the situation is framing it cognitively to just coach ourselves and say, look, this is not as much as a big deal as my attachment trauma and my nervous system is trying to tell me. It's okay that he or she or whoever, I just realized throughout this video I think I've used more male identified pronouns. It's not pronoun specific. We could use he, she, they, all of the pronouns. It does, it's not unique to gender. But I think I perhaps have, erred on the side of giving more examples where I say the word he. Unintentional, not what I want to do. I want to equally try to use all the pronouns to let us know that it's not gender specific. Although there's a group of people out there who keep trying to say that it is gender specific, and then we say, oh no, it's this group that needs to change. So it's really important to my work to realize that we move a bit beyond those gender stereotypes and look at it more as many of us, it's not so much informed by gender, but informed by our patterns of relating that came out of our history. And there are people growing up in families who inherit attachment trauma and certain insecure attachment styles that can be informed by gender, but is not necessarily the sole defining factor. So that was a bit of a tangent, but normalize the situation is a way to intellectually just tell yourself, hey, I got to calm down here. Thinking that this is such a big deal and that I'm just immediately getting ready to call my partner and get on the phone and say, hey, what's going on? I'm all upset and we got to talk about why I'm upset. Let's just slow down a little bit and really say, is this really a big deal? So this creates another asterisk. Here's another quick little tangent here. Many of us were taught to deny our feelings, and many of us grew up in families where our truth was not nurtured. So at the most extreme, our truth was denied directly. Some of us were punished for speaking our feeling states or naming how, what is going on for us. And we learned to hide. We learned to disconnect from our own feelings. And we learned over time to not even know what we feel or who we are. So when I say normalize the situation and try to take a step back to just say, can we put this into a little perspective here? This is somewhat of we need to be really skilled here, very skillful, very sensitive, that we're not enforcing, trying to tell you to talk yourself out of your own feelings. We're simply trying to get some perspective on them. So, because with hyperarousal as a trauma symptom, we know that we are going to experience certain situations as very intense. And we can say logically, or there's a high probability, if we're just looking at the mathematics of this, there's a high probability that the intensity around my hyperarousal and my attachment distress is incongruent with the thing that's actually happening. That in fact, what my body is picking up as this level 8, 9, or 10 intense moment of my partner's unavailable, there are going to be many times that the partner is really not that unavailable. I'm perceiving that they're even more that unavailable because my attachment trauma is activated and I'm seeing things through the lens of my attachment trauma. And this is how this stuff all gets really tricky. So just with the very first one, to say normalize the situation, try to put it into perspective. We want to be gentle and careful here that we're not telling you to talk yourself out of your own feelings to the point that you deny yourself the same way you were denied in your family system, or if you have a history of not having your truth be valued and validated. We're not going down the path of invalidating your truth or feelings, but we do want to say, is there some room to play with here so that we are just practicing trying to put it into a little more perspective to normalize the trigger and the intensity of what's happening might not merit the level of response that we're having. So that was number one, the normalize. And number two is de-escalate the intensity. And that's very literally what I like to do is the practice, say 25%. Can I lower the intensity of my response by 25%? How do I do that? And I take a breath and I come back into my body and I say, I am so upset. I'm at a level 9. And I say, is there a way through this? I am so upset by this situation and I need to get my partner to listen to me. And instead of calling the partner, instead of pursuing, trying to get him or they to listen and to respond back, say, what can I do for myself? And is it possible, can I, through my own will, through my own sense of wanting to coach myself, can I say, I want to drop down to an 8.5? I know my level of intensity and discomfort and my anxiety about this is 9. Is it possible that I can come down into more of an 8.5 or maybe an 8? And then we practice it. Can I get it down to a 7.5? And through normalizing, that's number one. The normalizing, we look at the situation and say, well, is this situation really merit a 9 response in my body? Now, yes, that is my body. Yes, I'm being honest and truthful that I know that I'm having a level 9 response. And I also want to give myself comfort through gaining perspective of the normalizing. And then as a self-coach, through my self-directed healing work, coach myself and say, what if I can just intentionally say, how can I take a couple breaths, put this into perspective, and practice helping my nervous system drop down by a 0.5 point or 1 point. That is what I mean by de-escalate the intensity. Let's move on to number 3. I said there's a total of 5 things. Those are 2 things. The third one is our good old favorite friend. You know what word I'm going to use here. Even before you read it, can you guess in this moment? It is boundaries. We need a cheering section. Boundaries. There are internal boundaries and external boundaries. There's other types of boundaries too, but let's just frame it that way in this moment. Internal boundaries are around my own emotional, my internal landscape, how I am orienting to my mind, and I can begin to create some containment, and the thing that contains, these are the boundaries. And then externally, what we're looking at, boundaries around we described earlier, the frequency of relating, the closeness and the separation. So some boundaries are to negotiate and say, hey partner, hey friend, I need to give you a heads up that when we come together and I value a certain level of closeness. And for me, that frequency occurs about every 3 days. For some people, it can be literally every 3 hours. We're all different here. And if you find a person who loves every 3-hour intimacy and connection and vulnerability and emotional openness, well, then your relationship's going to go great because you're both on the same page. Let's just say in this example, we say, partner, I need to negotiate and say that I need this level of connection and closeness every 3 days. And we go through this cycle, and we go to work and we live our life, and someone goes to the movies and someone goes to the gym, and we pick up our dry cleaning and we're doing our thing. And then guess what? At 3 days is rounding out or coming back around the cycle. It's time to check in again. It's time to sit on, I like the phrase, it's time to sit on the porch and have a lemonade and just, look at the stars and enjoy each other. And I don't know, I just look this way like I'm looking at the stars. So boundaries can help us manage our anxiety and the need and the desire to want to get the partner to listen. Having a boundary is to say, I'm not going to send that text, that provocative text. A boundary is, I don't need to process this again tonight at 10 p.m. at night. I'm going to wait until tomorrow and see with a fresh perspective where I'm at. And maybe my partner and I, if I still need to bring it up, I'll bring it up on the weekend. And I'll give my partner a heads up and say, I think I'm going to talk about my attachment distress. Do you hear the difference in that? It's a very different conversation to say, hey, partner, this Saturday, we have to get together and talk about how you don't listen to me. That is going to create, the person on the receiving end is immediately going to clam up and feel defensive. But if you say, hey partner, I want to give you a heads up that I'm still managing that attachment distress. It gets triggered at all these different times and different things happen. And I think on Saturday, I need to bring up what was going on for me this week with my attachment distress. It just keeps getting triggered. And I want to share that with you. That is a much different invitation. And even knowing to frame it that way is having boundaries around how you're sharing. So you're going to create a boundary around throwing some barbed kind of statement where it's about, hey, you failed to text me and I was really upset. And we got to talk on Saturday about how upset I was. And we're going to really get to the bottom of why you're not texting me. All of that is defensiveness. And all of that is you being guarded. And you're leading with anger. And you're not going to accomplish ultimately what you want in the question is, I want my partner to listen to me. So that was number 3. Number 4 is a lot of these, there's overlap in what we're talking about, but we just had boundaries. I gave the example of, is there a way that you can not follow up at 10 o'clock at night and say, hey, I'm going to manage my distress on my own, and maybe tomorrow, if I'm feeling the same way, I will call my partner and we'll begin to talk about it, or I'll plant the seeds that this is something that I'd like to check in about. Number 4 is that skill, and specifically what it is the word pause. We need to train ourselves when we are spun out, we are feeling this hyper anxiety, this hyper alertness, our nervous system is activated, and we're going to want to very quickly reach for the partner to say, partner, help me make this better. I need closeness, I need connection, and you are the person who's going to help me get there. We need to train ourselves. Not always. This is not the only thing. This is not a hierarchy. Sometimes it's perfectly reasonable to say, you know what, in this moment, it's 10 o'clock at night, I am calling. I'm calling right now. And I'm saying, if you're up, can you please say, can we practice offering each other reassurance? because my nervous system is blown out. I have a really important meeting tomorrow at work. I've got to get some sleep. And if I don't connect with you in this moment in a way that I just know that we're in a good place and we're on the same page, my nervous system is going to be total mess all night. I'm not going to get any sleep, and that's going to ruin the next day. So because you know this about me, because we've already talked about it before, can you help me here? So we want a partner who's able to help, and sometimes you're just going to have to need to do it in the moment. You're going to make that call. Now, number 4, the skill that I'm presenting is this idea is, can you do the opposite? Can you really practice and strengthen the ability to pause and to learn how in those moments, hey, I have got to give myself some reassurance here. This is where the inner child work comes in, where we start talking to the part of ourselves that's hurt and scared, and that little child, that inner voice is like, I need someone to hold me. I need someone to tell me it's okay. And then you come in, that's, the word inner child work is very synonymous or links to the skill of accessing your healthy, wise parent self. Now you're reparenting yourself. You come in and you say, hey, wow, I can feel how upset you are. And instead of thinking we need to call the other person in this moment and have them do something, I'm going to do it for myself right now by affirming your reality, by affirming the reality of the part that is hurting. And we say, I know that you're so upset. I know, I am sorry. And I'm here for you and I'm listening. Tell me how upset you are. And that part, either verbally or just you'll feel it in your body. Will be sort of like a cat lashing out with its claws. Pay attention to me. Listen to me. Listen to me. And then we have to exhale. Oh, no. It's the goal. We can't keep chasing another person and try to get a partner to one day listen to us the way we need to be listened to. The part of us that needs listened to is the wounded part, is the place where our attachment trauma is housed. And if we are pitting the other person against our wound, the wound will always win. The other person cannot be the hero to our own wound. The other person is not going to be able to make right the thing that we're carrying within ourselves that feels deficient and hurt and broken. We can have moments where that person shares some connection and vulnerability and really loves us, and we can have moments with a therapist, moments with a mentor, moments with other, a community of healers, a community of people, like-minded people, where we're sharing together to support each other in this healing work. And yes, we are inspired by other people. And yes, altruism and compassion really do translate. And this wound that you carry, this really upset part of you, and if we're framing it in this moment as like the inner child, that 8-year-old, that 10-year-old, whatever age, the 3-year-old, we're having a temper tantrum at age 3. We're not going to get a partner, anyone who wants to show up and be your substitute parent and give you a corrective experience and reparent you while you're 30 years old or 40 years old, and they're going to enter an adult-child relationship with you. Whether or not a partner knows this cognitively or consciously, we all feel it, and we're like, ooh, I don't know. I'm not your parent. No, I'm your friend. I'm your lover. I'm your life partner. I'm not showing up to be the conduit for you to work out your attachment trauma with. We can practice learning new skills of secure relating. We can practice being gentle and compassionate to each other when our attachment trauma gets activated. But to think that, to put me in the role that I'm now somehow responsible to help you work this out, we're setting ourselves up to fail big time. And that's a major, huge problem that many of us fall into, because we sort of mindlessly gravitate, our whole body sort of like we want to fall into the other person. This idea of a rescuer. I mean, that's codependency, rescuing, being rescued, finding a savior as a partner, is, despite the fact that many of us feel that innate, that deep need to have that. And we even, it's also even referred to as like wanting a feeling of symbiosis, of when you're in the womb, that you're totally connected with the mother and child. You're one, you're breathing together, you're literally of the same body together. And that there's, these theories that say that our psyche, when we're so wounded in the place of our foundational attachment, our attachment system has been so compromised that it's very easy to want to get sucked into a symbiotic enmeshment of, oh, please just be a savior and take over and help me, be consumed by you. And it's in this complete consumption or enmeshment that, my wound will be healed. It generally doesn't work like that. I mean, I'm assuming many of us have had some experiences like that are fleeting, and we could say, well, you know what? For 10 minutes, for 10 days, for 10 months, there was an aspect of that kind of enmeshment that I learned something about me, and it was really helpful. It was helpful as a chapter. I really needed someone to take care of me at that time, and I happened to find someone who would show up in that role, and guess what? That was so good for my healing work. But most of us don't stay there. We also simultaneously have to come back to that part of ourselves that's so aching and hurting, and we have to not look to the other person. We learn how to pause, and we come back and say, how do I give myself what I need? This is so different from the original question. How do I get my partner to listen to me? At this point, number 4, the skill we're on, number 4, is saying, how do I get myself to listen to my inner child part that's hurting? How do I really get myself to listen to my attachment trauma? This is a nice, I feel in this moment, this is a nice teaching moment, in that so many, I've been doing this work for years. I've, at this point, probably talked to thousands of people. And we're just so quick to focus on how the partner, the physical, the human being, the other person in our life, it's also referred to as the object, the object of our attachment. We just want we want to control that person and have that person be an extension of our own need. And it's captured in the phrase of the question, how do I get my partner to listen to me? And then we come back to say, well, how am I not listening to myself? When I'm activated, when my attachment trauma is rearing its head and my inner child self is having a full-blown temper tantrum, how do I take a pause and shift focus away from externally what other people are doing and go inward and say, now is the time to enter my healing work and to show up for what is this dynamic that's getting triggered here? Because I really don't think it's just about this person needing to listen to me share that one most important thing that I thought I needed to share. Number 5, talked about skills, ways to work with this. I named Normalize the Situation, said de-escalate the intensity, practice a kind of 25% less model. Talked about remind yourself of boundaries, look at the frequency of engagement, and how can you have both internal boundaries and external boundaries. Talked about learn to pause. And I guess there's 2 more things I want to say here real quick before I go into number 5, and I'm sorry that I'm adding this because it's already a lot, but learn to pause also means do an inventory of where else are you living life. So many times we get very myopic and overly focused on a partner, them, him, her, whoever it is, whatever pronoun, the other person. And I need you to listen to me. I need you to listen to me. And we're like a dog with a bone where we just can't let it go. We can this idea of practicing taking a pause is we can also say, well, can I pause and can I shift focus into what the heck else is going on in my life? Do I have other relationships? Do I have other friendships? Am I participating in organizations? Am I invested in eating healthy? Am I invested in exercise? Can I take a walk in nature? Am I inviting some play and adventure into my life? All of these things together, I called it, get a life. We need to get a life. It's in those moments we need to rely on and say, you know what? And this goes back to number one, normalizing the situation, is to say this thing is really not as much of a big deal as I'm making it out to be. Why don't I pause just a little bit and call up a friend and let's not talk to that friend about any of this drama or my upsetness about it. Can I put a boundary on it? And can my friend and I have a completely different conversation and do something else where we're letting in nourishment and letting in interaction, interacting with the world in a way that that's reinforcing getting perspective. The other thing just related to this is the phrase drop the story. When we're in it, he didn't call, she didn't call, they didn't call, this happened, they did this, and then they did this, and we're playing out the story of why, the trigger of why we're upset, and we can say, can I drop the story a little bit? Can I just put it on hold? Just pause a little bit. That's number 4. Number 5 is we need an action plan. Very concretely. Doing something. We're not sitting around passively waiting for the person to listen or not listen to us. We're not sitting around waiting for the person to be available so that we can talk this out and process it. We're taking action for ourselves. When attachment trauma is activated, we lose resource and we become dependent on, how do I say this? A dependency is created when we're overly focused on other to save us, and that we think when we're in our attachment trauma, we have lost, we often regress. This links back to like inner child stuff again. So if we're regressing, and I'm now 8 years old, I don't have my adult self to shore me up and what resources I really have to take care of myself as an adult. If I'm in that moment for the next half hour, for the next 3 hours, whatever it is, where I'm seeing things through the lens of my attachment trauma and I'm really activated, I'm going to be overly focused on how can the other person help me take care of myself. And it's this desire of wanting them to help me that makes me passive. And so one skill you can work with when you're in this activated state is to really think about where can you make a plan, where can you assert your will through agency. Agency is the ability to do, the ability to take action. It's the power that, one foot in front of the other, and the ability to actually lift your foot is agency. The ability to, lift your foot in a particular direction is having agency. So we want to think about, what do I need to do here to take care of myself that is action focused so that I'm not just imploding into my own disempowerment, but if I can align with a plan of action, then I'm strengthening my empowerment. Attachment trauma disconnected us from relationship, it disconnected us from ourselves, and it disconnected us from our agency. That we felt, well, we can't, I can't make mom engage with me the way I want her to. I can't make dad engage with me the way I want him to. I can't make these family members. I really feel helpless and I feel powerless and helpless to this family dynamic where these other people, I cannot control them. So oftentimes that develops a we overcompensate by, well, okay, well, if that's the case, if I can't control you, I'm going to learn how to be really super controlling, and I'm going to overcompensate and try to control everything in my life. Or I'm going to do the opposite and say, well, I'm so helpless, I can't, I'm really don't have the ability to do anything. So regardless of the manifestation of how it shows up as an overcompensating or undercompensating, this number 5, this skill that I'm suggesting is you really need to think about how can you create an action plan that employs doing something that takes care of you and takes care of your feelings. That might be, and this one's tricky, you gotta be careful here. That might be, you do really need to talk to your partner. You really do need to say, hey, it's Thursday after work. Can you meet me at this coffee shop? I got to sit down. Some things have been triggered. This is really upsetting for me, and I really need your help. Are you able to show up and to listen and participate with me? We need to do some relationship repair. I think we're doing all this work about learning about relationships. Will you show up for me like that partner? Does this interest you? Are you able to do that tonight on this Thursday evening? I'm thinking it'll take 40 minutes. I mean, that is very direct. That is a plan. And that, and now keep in mind, your partner, might go roll their eyes and exhale, say, oh gosh, we just had this conversation 2 nights ago, like again, so be prepared. You might have to do with that. The other thing here, an action plan as a skill, making a plan, tapping into agency is reinforcing. We want you to feel empowered and not disempowered. And keep in mind that an option here, and this goes back to number 4, was learn to pause. Number 5 is take an action plan. And I very specifically added to number 5, an action plan can be not making a plan, like doing nothing. Like doing nothing is a legitimate, reasonable response to managing this intensity. You say, you know what, I don't need to talk to my partner again. We just talked on Tuesday. I don't need to make a big deal out of showing up at a coffee shop and talking out all the details. You know what, I'm going to go home and I'm going to take a walk. I'm going to go to the park. I'm going to take a walk. And, I'm going to write in my journal. I'm going to listen to some good music. I'm going to make myself a really good meal with a lot of green items, and I'm going to take care of my body. And know that I have to comfort myself and offer some self-soothing. That's the plan. That's what I'm going to do. And it's going to look like I'm doing nothing as far as reaching out to the other person. I hope that this was helpful. This is a long video. I will also add on this video, maybe I should have added this at the beginning, to acknowledge I have not made videos for a long time. I created almost 150 videos, and I got to a point where I needed a break from entering the intensity of this content. And I wanted also to, there to be a shift and a change of how I create a dialogue. It's not, I really have taken literally months to practice this dialogue aspect, where I can take a break and write on the pad of paper, where I'm drinking from my seltzer, and not putting so much pressure on myself to really have to get it right. But I wanted to, this new set of videos, I want them to be about process. And true to form, like my other videos in the past and this one right now, and I'm sort of glad because it's sort of my signature, my videos are long. I mean, this is a long video. And there's a purpose and an intention behind this. If you're looking for a quick answer, a 6-minute video, a 10-minute video, where you're consuming content as this removed consumer, or some people are looking for kind of like infotainment, information that has an entertaining quality of just, can I get a piece of information, consume it, and move on to the next video? I'm offering process. That if you stick it out, if you listen, if you enter the process, I'm sure there are times I'm confusing. I'm sure there are times when, I kind of repeat ideas multiple times. As I said earlier, healing work is repetition work. And the same way that, trauma reenactment also anchors habituated, unhealthy, insecurely attached behaviors through repetition. What we're doing through this dialogue is revisiting, visiting, revisiting, working, reworking some ideas. And these 5 skills that I offered is what I came up with as a way to try to own this question, turn it around. I want you to go inward and to enter the rhythm of this process. Essentially, the way I explore ideas here, which do have an intellectual component, do have an educational component, but we want to constantly check in with how they apply to our own experience. And in doing so, what are you noticing in your body as you watch the video? There's going to be moments where you're irritated, like, you think I'm talking too much, or it's boring, or it triggered some anger, or I said something where I put my foot in my mouth. And all of that is the process. And that's how we apply this, the ability to go inward and to enter your inner world and to activate the part of you that is self-reflective, that will mirror your wisdom, and that anchors your healing. That is the healing work. And that's why I said in these videos, I'm calling them not Q&A, but I'm calling them Q&R, as in question and reflection. Essentially what I accomplished here today through going through all of this information is really what I want to offer, in that you can do the same thing for yourself. And hopefully I'm modeling it, of how you can take your own question and begin to explore it, so that you don't just get hung up on, I need the answer, I need the answer, I need the answer. So that being said, I did go through those 5 skills. I'm naming them 5 skills. Normalize the situation, de-escalate the intensity, focus on the boundaries, internal, external boundaries, learn to pause, let in other aspects of your life, drop the story, and create an action plan. And the action plan might include actually doing nothing, learning how to not be reactionary to your own attachment distress. And that is a great accomplishment if you can do that. So I hope the different things that I shared here, I hope that you take these ideas, and that it's really just the beginning of the conversation. It's the beginning of, us talking about self-directed healing work. You might still be asking yourself, well, what do we do next? How do we continue to heal? And as you already know, that's the content of all of my videos, both past and upcoming future ones. That's what I like to talk about. The truth is, there's not a quick fix 30-second soundbite to this question we asked today, or pretty much any question. There's not a simple list of, let's name the top 10 things to change today to achieve your healing goals. Healing work is highly personal. It is unique to you. It is unique to your needs. It's unique to your history. And it requires education and discipline and discovering the patterns that come out of all of this self-reflection. So you're going to need to understand where you've come from in order to map out where you're going. We're not going to bypass this process and then, quickly bypass it and call it, oh, we're reprogramming your subconscious. I mean, that just doesn't make sense to me. There's no rushing. Unfortunately, the video's long because there's no rushing. There's a common saying among psychotherapists trained in trauma work, which is slow is fast. And this means that healing work takes place when we slow down. So the easiest answer to the question, how do we heal, is by doing our healing work. Ask yourself these 3 questions. Do you want to learn new relationship skills? Are you ready to educate yourself about attachment trauma? And can you make a daily commitment to this healing work? And yes, I said daily. A good place to start, and an approach that I take with clients, is in 3 areas, which are your relationship to your past, your relationship to yourself, and your relationship to relating itself. First is heal your relationship to your past. That means a good chunk of time, a good chapter, a good period of your healing work is about childhood and family and intergenerational trauma, and really looking at the inherited core beliefs and the attachment behaviors that came out of what you learned and how you are now repeating those, somewhat unaware. And we're trying to bring it into consciousness. Say, hey, wait a minute, I don't think I need, I don't think I believe that anymore, and I don't think I want to keep behaving in the same way. And when it comes to attachment, trauma, any kind of trauma, there's an aspect called trauma reenactment, where we're a bit like mindlessly just like repeating the same old patterns. And usually those are patterns of suffering and patterns that hurt us in relationship. And so that's what I mean when I say heal your past. When we look at the past, we identify our learned patterns of behavior. We see the past playing out in the present. So it's not just getting focused on the past. It's saying, how is this playing out in the present? And then when we can name that, that is really good information. The other area I like to encourage and promote is heal your relationship to yourself. This really means going inward, looking at your sense of self. What does it mean to have a sense of self? How has your sense of self been compromised? How do you think about yourself, feel about yourself, know your values, voice your preferences? Can you pursue your desires? This comes back to, I spoke earlier about agency, being able to take agency and enforcing boundaries. All of that together strengthens your relationships to yourself. When you do this, you're advocating for yourself. When you're advocating for yourself, that alone is self-care. And all together, all of this together then equals self-love. That's how we begin to break down and define what is self-love. Lastly, the next is heal your relationship to relating. We're just looking at, how do you do when you're with another person? This is really like sit in front of another person, a person that you have some attachment to, a friend or a partner or a family member. And do you have the skills to know how to relate? It's a bit, I call it emotional tennis. There's this back and forth. Emotional tennis is officially called limbic resonance. It's also called emotional attunement. And we're mirroring each other, we're listening, we're engaged, we're picking up on cues, we're modeling body language, we're breathing together, we're having a shared experience. And if we are mindless to this, if we are not aware of this, now this is what, if we're not aware of it, then our relationships are going to suffer. This is what actors do really well. I mean, actors are trained, they go through training. Some people are just kind of innately naturally do this, but ultimately actors training is to train in the art of emotional presence. And that's, they're dedicating their life to say, can I tell a story through presence? Can I be available and show how, can I show up in relationship? And so when we're looking at the art of relating, we're looking at our relationship to relating. This is about knowing how to engage and to be present in our interactions with others. This is about practicing emotional openness. And when we do this enough, we're inviting corrective experiences. This, along with what I've already said, this really creates a foundation for your self-directed healing work. All that I'm talking about here, we need a plan. The model that I teach is what I call self-directed healing work. Now keep in mind, self-directed healing work doesn't mean that you have to go it alone. You're not by yourself. You're not totally isolated. We do need others in our life to talk to and make progress. This is why I created the membership community, Improve Your Relationships, where we are a group of like-minded learners who come together to have meaningful conversations and offer support to each other. When we invest in our healing work, we change old relationship patterns and we learn better skills of relating. And you can learn more about the community if this interests you. If you want to join us, please do. Go to alanrobarge.com community. All this information, including the URL to join the community, is going to be in the description that you'll be able to check out below. Keep in mind, if you value these videos and you receive benefit, please consider becoming a sustaining supporter, which means you can make a donation, you can join the membership community, Improve Your Relationships, or you could also purchase one of my courses. Thank you in advance for your contribution. It acknowledges the work. There's a lot of hard work that goes into offering this free content, and guarantees new videos. I did take a break for a bit from videos. I'm gearing up to start cranking them out again. And so creating a donation is a way to pay it forward. In closing, I do want to name why we do this work. Our attachment trauma keeps us disconnected, disconnects us from our relationships. And the truth is, it disconnects us from ourselves. So most of us desire secure, reliable, attuned connections to undo that disconnection. I mean, it's so painful to know that you want relationship and yet feel like there's a absence or an inability to attain that. So I assume you watching this video, you're no different. You're like me. We're very similar in that way, that you're not alone, and that many of us can relate. I can relate. This is why I make these videos, because essentially, I talk about the things that I need to learn and the things that are important to me. The good news is that healing attachment trauma is possible. So please take from this video some encouragement and some positivity. Know that there is hope. The truth is that we all want to love and be loved, and that we all want meaningful relationships. We do this work because our relationships are important and because emotional connections matter. Thank you for watching. There are more videos on the way. Now go out there and create loving relationships.